Okay, thanks everybody for coming. I'm just going to do a quick introduction and we're going to pass it on to the architect and DPR. This is our second meeting of the Chevy Chase Community Center design review process. And we're going to hear from DPR and Bell, an update on the schedule, and we're going to see what they've been doing design-wise. I think since we have so few audience members here, we might do this a little more informally than the agenda suggests. So let's just start with DPR. So Brent, actually maybe we should do introductions first. So my name is Chris Romboludi. I'm an ANC commissioner, and I'm an architect, and I've lived here for this neighborhood for 30 years. Jerry.
I'm Jerry Malletz. I'm an ANC Commissioner of 3G05, and I've been a resident here for 13 years.
Hello, my name is Connie Chang. I'm a citizen, I guess, here, and I've been a resident of our area for 20 years now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abraham Clayman. I'm an ANC Commissioner. I represent Hawthorne and part of Barnaby Woods. My wife and I have lived in Hawthorne for about 5 years.
I'm Patrick Williams. I live in Hawthorne as well. And I'm a member of the Design Oversight Task Force.
Hi folks, sorry. This is Brent Cisco with DPR, Parks and Recreation, and I'm the DPR project manager for this project, so thanks for being here tonight.
Hi, I'm Jamie Johnson. I'm an assistant project manager on behalf of the Department of General Services.
I'm David Bell with Bell Architects.
And I am Daniel Blair, project architects / project manager for Bell Architects, and been a resident of DC for 15 years now.
Okay. Brent, start.
Sure, I can go ahead and get it started. So again, Brent Cisco, and I just want to say thanks for coming out tonight. I know you have other options. It's always great to see young folks here in meetings. I can't get my daughter to go anywhere with me, so congratulations on whoever your parent is. But this is our second meeting about the new Chevy Chase Community Center. And we're very excited about this project, and we're very thankful that the ANC and the task force has agreed to host our meetings. We actually have microphones and tables and stuff like that, so that's really nice. But we really do appreciate it. And also, your ANC has been fantastic about gathering information on what residents would like to see here and programs you'd like to see. So that's been an invaluable resource for us through the planning process. So we really, I just want to say that again, we really appreciate that information and all the hard work that you guys have done. So tonight, we're back with Bell Architects, who is the architect of record for this project. This is a $19 million, plus or minus a few dollars, project that we have funding for in this fiscal year. Actually, last fiscal year, but fiscal year money carries over from year to year, so there's no danger that we would ever lose that money as long as the project is actively going. So we're, again, happy to be here in our second meeting. I can quickly go through the agenda. So we'll go through the project schedule, and then I believe Daniel's going to go through the project challenges, the progress they've made so far, and then get into some blocking and stacking, which is really sort of just visual representations of what the preliminary thoughts about this facility and how the future facility could possibly work, to get your feedback, the ANC's feedback. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps and then have some Q&A and discussion after that. So again, thank you for coming out, and I guess with that, we'll turn it over to Dane. Thanks.
Thanks, Brent. Again, I agree with what Brent said. David and I both want to welcome everybody, and thanks for everybody for hosting us and inviting us out. appreciate if everyone wouldn't mind making sure your phones are off, so we can do this without any interruptions. Even though we have a small group here tonight, I'm just going to ask that group, we put together a little presentation here to bring you guys up to speed on what we've done. If you don't mind putting questions in the end, I'd appreciate it. There's a lot of things we can talk about. We could be here for 3 hours if we wanted to, talking about all the nitty-gritty details, but we're going to try to focus on a few things tonight. One of them is basically we're going to give an overview of the design process and where we are right now. And again, this is a process. We didn't come into this project with a preconceived notion on what the building is going to look like. Part of this process is trying to figure out what the program needs are, what the technical requirements are, and from that, that's going to define. It's kind of like baking a cake. It's like we're looking at the ingredients and trying to figure out what the ingredients are, what the requirements are, and all that's going to come together and form the structure and shape the building eventually. And tonight we want to focus on more on the blocking and stacking exercise, which is basically where are the spaces that have been requested going in the building. So we've come up with 2 schemes for that, looking at a couple options, and we'll get into more details on that. And so then, in addition to that, following this meeting, later this week we're going to be submitting our draft concept submission, which will be a written report, which will get more into the details of the individual spaces. So we've gone through and started to put together what we're calling a rec spec for each of the spaces. So the gymnasium, how big is it? How many occupants can it hold? What technical, what technology is going into it? What's the HVAC controls like? All that is going to be listed in this specification. So tonight is going to be more about looking at where the spaces are in relation to each other, what floor they're on, which ones are facing south, which ones are facing north, which ones want to be up in the public space, either fronting McKinley or Connecticut Avenue, and which ones want to have a little bit more privacy and be focused on the commons. The submission later this week will be more detailed about each of the spaces. And we're going to be asking for feedback on both. And again, in the long-term goal of this, as we go forward, the design is contingent on your feedback, on the community's feedback, and the task force is feedback. Desired feedback we're looking for tonight is, again, where are the locations of the spaces? Where do you want them at? We have 2 options that are going to really shuffle the spaces around, and we want you to take a look at, which one feels better, which one matches up better with what you guys have in your mind. Again, which activities and spaces are visible to the public, and what's the visitor arrival experience like? Is it going to be something where you want to have the entrance really prominent or more reserved? And in the end of the 2 design schemes, we're looking really for feedback on which one makes more sense, which one should we really begin to pursue and really focus on, and which one, I'm sure there'll be there's some good ideas in A and there's some good ideas in B, but maybe one feels better and resonates better with the community. Overall, the schedule. This is kind of an outline of the schedule. Where we're at right now is determining the goals. We've already gone through and done the assessment portion, and we're now in the goals section, which is focusing more on, again, the technical requirements. What are the ingredients that are going into this structure that we're putting together? And then from this, we're going to produce a master plan report, which will be released in winter. And then the next step after that would be to go through and do the design process of putting the construction documents together, schematic design, design development, and construction documents, and implementing that master plan. Tonight is our second community meeting, which we're focusing on the blocking and stacking. The next step after this is the concept submission, which we'll be releasing Friday, and we're looking to have that posted on the web, so we can get feedback from people, particularly the program managers for the different activities in the building. And then in the next year, we hope to complete the concept design process and submit that to DGS and DPR, and then we will come and present that to the community. What the final plans, what our final concept plans look like, what does the building look like, what's the materiality of the building. To give you guys an overview of where we are today, what we've done since we last met. If you recall, there's 4 major challenges that this project is facing. One is zoning, the other one is historic eligibility, the third is the existing additions, the limitations, the restrictions from the existing additions of the building, and the fourth is the program and program needs of each of the spaces. It's for a community center, it's got a lot going on inside it, and each space has different requirements, and we've done a lot of work since we last met and figuring out, getting more responses from the help of the ANC and from a questionnaire we sent out to each of the program managers, asking, what is it you need? You need lockable storage. Can you use shared storage? Can your space be shared? Do you want to have natural sunlight? Do you not want to have natural, all those questions, and that's helped us really guide the program and really begin to figure out where each of the spaces should go and how each of them work together. So since we last met, there's some things we've completed. If you recall, I may have mentioned we have these 4, if you consider them swimming lanes, these 4 challenges are each in their own swimming lanes. Like the existing additions, we have a really good handle on that. We've gone through and completed the geotech. We've done an assessment of the existing structure. We've completed the LiDAR scans. We now have an actual BIM model of the existing building, which includes the common space and the library. The two key issues that are really restricting us right now are the zoning regulations and the historic eligibility. And we've made progress on each of those. One is we've confirmed that there isn't as far limitation on as far as the floor area ratio, which gives you the allowable building area on the site. And we've confirmed that there is a limitation to it. We are restricted by that. And we have to either go get a special exception or a map amendment, which is interesting. You guys have that planned land use. I've been talking a lot about that recently. And that's going to help us. And then we've also completed, for the historic eligibility, we've completed the DOE, or the historic preservation consultant has completed the DOE reports, and those have been submitted to HPO. And we're now just awaiting HPO determinations on whether this building is considered eligible for historic. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Then last but not least is the programming. We've done questionnaires. We've put together, we've taken the ANC program matrix and expanded it, and we changed some spaces. We've decreased some size in spaces. We've expanded some spaces. That will be more detailed in Friday's submission. We won't really focus on that tonight. And like I said, we've really focused on learning more about the technical requirements of each of these spaces. So, with design, it's never the goal is to get these 4 lanes to line up and eventually, all come together. And they're going to come together at different times. And we've made some progress on some things, but still, some things are going to be lagging and coming in later. We'll have a zenyatta horse coming in from the back of the pack and rushing at the very end and putting it all together. So, a summary of the regulations. As you may recall, we had this slide the last time we were here, and we have confirmed that the zoning attorney that basically at the bottom of the screen here, this 3,600 square feet increases allowed. That's all we have right now allowed per the zoning regulation to increase the building. So we basically can't even pop up another floor right now. But we are working on this, and we've begun to look at the options, and we begin to have dialogues with the Office of Planning, and we're bringing in a zoning attorney to help us address this. There's two key things on this slide I want to point out. One is the maximum building area presently right now. The way that the formula is calculated, you have about 44,500 gross square feet on the property. That includes the rec center and the library. Our allowable is only 48, so that's the 3,600 square feet increase. If we're looking to go towards MU3, we may get up to 73,000 gross square feet by right. And in talking to in talking to Office of Planning, this may be increased because there's a discrepancy in the zoning ordinance, which is odd, that the R1B zone, which this site is also in, is allowing more density than the MU. And so the zoning, the Office of Planning was like, well, that's not right. That's not the way it should be. And so they're willing to work with us, and we're beginning to have a dialogue with them and figure out ways to increase the FAR on this property so we can get as much, we'll try to get as much as we can to make sure we can do the addition, the expansion properly. The historic eligibility front, we've determined, or the historic preservation consultant has determined that the public library is recommended for historic consideration, and the community center is not recommended for historic consideration. Everyone thought that the prevailing thought was that, is it Satterley? Is that pronounced the name? Satterley designed the community center. It turns out he did not design the community center, he designed the library. And somebody else, a different firm, designed the community center. And the community center was built in 1971, so it is not 50 years old. And so from the historic preservation report, their finding was that the community center is not historic. So now we just need to wait for HPO to confirm and provide their finding, their, what do you call it? Confirmation? Yeah, their determination on eligibility. Regarding our programming front, we've taken the ANC report as the foundation for the program goals and space requirements, and we've augmented that with the ANC questionnaires that were created last February. You guys did those, and then we also submitted out a Google form to each of the program managers here at the facility to get their requirements. So we've combined all that data, and that's what we're developing. That's creating the rec spec for each of the spaces, which is something we typically don't do. But in this case, like I said, there's so many spaces with unique requirements. We felt that this is the best way to convey it, and so that will be released on Friday. Our findings from the program, again, when ANC's report had a total gross area recommended of 45,000 square feet. We're looking at right now about 48 is what we think we need. And again, will be in the report on Friday. And like I said, there'll be indications that some spaces have reduced in size and some have increased in size. We'll get into a little bit of that tonight. Also part of the programming is what we've heard so far from meeting with you last time, and also from the ANC reports and the surveys and everything is basically the community would like a structure that fits in the context and scale of the neighborhood. And the word that really stuck with me last time was the village feel. Would it match with have the feel of being a part of the village? And wood and glass materials were mentioned to be preferred, and obviously we're going to retain the common space. And another thing that really stuck out to me was making the center feel like it's a town center and being a part of a place for people to really come here and be a part of the community. So from that, we get into our analysis of the existing site. This is a little diagram just showing the little orange arrows show your points of entry for vehicles. The little blue dots indicate points of entry for pedestrian traffic, whether it's be entering on the sidewalk. The little blue arrows indicate foot traffic going from the parking lot to through the commons out to Connecticut Avenue. There's 2 routes out on Connecticut Avenue. And all the blue dots indicate points of entry for the buildings as well. Looking at that, we are focusing our attention and part of this process to really determine, this is an on-site. In fact, that one site is fronting Connecticut Avenue, the other site is residential. And so we really want to try to have the new building really respond to that. So we're paying close attention to how it responds to the commercial spaces across Connecticut Avenue to the west and the east, that the residential attached feeling. We want to provide too many activities, like for example, we understand we're trying to be mindful of, you want to have rooftop activities on the roof that are going to be loud and overlooking the residences and taking away their privacy in their backyard, for example. We want to be mindful of that. So the concept that we've begun to dig into, or approaches that we're looking at, is those 2 yellow spaces to the east and the west are the areas we're focusing on looking at into expansion. So it gives us an opportunity to either go out from the ground, take the ground out to Connecticut Avenue and interact with the sidewalk there, or depending on the space needs and the size of the building and all that kind of stuff, maybe we don't need to do that, we'll just go east towards the residence side, or we do both. And looking at the zoning envelope allows us to not only go up, not go out, but also go up. As of right now, 1 story, plus a penthouse. So we think the envelope could look something like this. That's just the boundary of where we can expand out to. That's not to say this is the form of the building and this is what it's going to look like. And then based on, so that's looking at out towards Connecticut Avenue, and the next one is looking at towards the red, going towards the east. And also you can see how we can interact or bring the building out to the sidewalk if necessary. This slide just is summarizing the program activities you have here. Again, we'll get more into that in the report. I'm going to just kind of skip by this slide, but we've gone through and documenting these program requirements extensively, and like I said, that'll be a part of Friday's submission. For the blocking and stacking at night, there's a couple program goals that kind of guided us in how we arranged things. And one is, one of the comments that we received from DPR is they were really concerned about how there's multiple points of entry on the site. They can't really control access. So we're looking at this as trying to provide a single point of entry. One main spot when you walk in, there'll be a desk in the lobby, and the DPR office will be there. So it'll be very easy for them to control and monitor access. The other goal that we're trying to achieve is engaging the urban context again. And this is more for programming, but the shared spaces is trying to figure out what activities can go in each of the spaces. So we can double up spaces or reduce the number of spaces if necessary to make the building more efficient. Because one of the things that's become clear on this is getting the responses from everybody. There's some programs that take place in the evenings and on the weekends, and some activities take place in the morning or during the day, or summer months, and others are in the fall. Or, so we try to just get those to all align. And then the one thing that when we started putting together, we went through and did a little design shred in our office where we came down and just started playing with squares on a table and trying to figure out where these places can go. There's 3 things that really jumped out at us. And depending on in the form of the building and the locations of the spaces, really coalesced around 3 main spaces. One is where you put the entry. The second is whether you put the gymnasium. The gymnasium is huge. It's one of the largest spaces in here. And the auditorium is the second largest. Those 3, and they're also double height. Those 2 spaces are nearly double height. Where those 3 spaces go really guides how everything else kind of falls into place, as you'll see here. So this is basically a summary showing an exploded axon of what you have now, the program locations, where they are located now. So the blue spaces indicate the meeting spaces, like the activity lounge, the senior lounge, meeting spaces, the kitchen, tech lounge, things like that. The purple space, which is kind of hard to see on these, is the auditorium. So you can see we are presently right here in this space. And then the green is the gymnasium, and the goldish spaces are the common spaces, which is the lobby, the cafe, the rooftop garden. So the first column is showing the existing, basically we mapped out how the existing spaces lay out in the building, and then Scheme A and Scheme B, which we'll get into more detail here in just a minute. You can kind of see how those are getting put together. And the key takeaway is you can see on Scheme A, the gymnasium in the front, down at the ground level, and we looked at keeping the entry off of the commons to see what that did. And also we put the auditorium on the ground floor as well. And we'll get more into that as well, but you can see the difference between that and Scheme E, where we put an entry off of Connecticut Avenue and the common space. So it basically a 2-story entry. One you're coming in low, the other one you're coming in high. It's a shared entry that takes you to the same locations. And the gymnasium, we thought it'd be kind of fun to put it up on the 2nd floor. Just, basically create an overhang on the ground where you can basically have the preschool area down below have their own covered little courtyard. So they can have their own outdoor playground accessible to the space. So get more. We're going to go layer by layer here. Bear with me for a second. The existing building is about 32,000 gross square feet, 33,000 gross square feet if you round up. It's presently a 2-story plus cellar plus penthouse, and it's about 32 feet high. Scheme A, we're looking about at 48,000 gross square feet. We're looking at it becoming a 3-story building with a penthouse, and it's going to be about, according to the zoning envelope, this is all subject to change. We're aiming at about a 40-foot height with an 18-foot penthouse. And Scheme A is looking at having the main entry on the common space. And the way this lays out, the Scheme A lays out, is on your low level, again, we have the 2-story lobby, gymnasium, and auditorium. As we move up the building, we have the main entry, where the little orange arrows indicating the point of entry. We have the active lounge, the senior lounge, the game room, and the preschool located on the floor, built around the auditorium and the gymnasium, which is popping up through the floor. So it gives us opportunities to basically look down at the gymnasium. We can basically have the auditorium be entered from the basement level or the ground level, and also on the first floor is kind of what we're thinking. So kind of like how you have it now, where the projection room is on a that's considered a mezzanine actually, but kind of the same idea where you'd have the seating. You basically have 2 points of entry for seating. Then the second floor, we located the fitness center over top of the gymnasium. So it has you basically see the activity of people on the treadmills, as you walk along Connecticut Avenue. So we try to have the building and activities engage the streetscape. And because that's one of the comments that people made, is wanting to be able to see activity in the building. We think the fitness center will probably be one of the most active rooms. And it also removes we relocate the fencing studio so they no longer have west sunlight in the evening. so on the second floor, we have the fitness center, the tech room, the arts and crafts studio, the performing arts studio, and the fencing studio, and the maker space on the second floor. Let's see here. What's we going to say about that? We'll move up to the penthouse, and we have spaces reserved for a cafe overlooking the rooftop outdoor lounge area and the rooftop garden, which is adjacent to the community kitchen and meeting room as well. So that's basically it for Steve. Anything else you'd like to add? Keep going. Next is our Scheme B approach that we came up with. And this too is about 48,000 square foot, and 2 is a 3-story plus penthouse. And we're looking to maintain that 40-foot height plus 18-foot penthouse. The main differences on this one is that we moved the main entry to Connecticut Avenue and the Commons as well. So this is the entry level, ground level, where we have, you can come off the McKinley and Connecticut Avenue intersection and walk towards the building, and we probably have some kind of overhang from the spaces up above. But as you walk in, you have a 2-story lobby, auditorium would be there, the DPR office would be down there, and you have meeting room, tech room, arts and crafts, and active lounge, as well as the maker space down there. Since we don't have the gymnasium in the basement in this case, we can get a lot more activities down on the ground level. Then on the first floor, again, you have a 2-story lobby that you can enter in, and we kept the senior lounge on the first floor, so you can enter in basically consider that they would be entering, we would assume that they would be entering more from the parking lot. And so they would be coming from the parking lot through the commons area to enter the lobby, I should say, to reach their spaces. So we have the senior lounge, the game room, and the preschool, which has to be on grade, and the ballet studio has moved downstairs to this level. And again, we have a 2-story high auditorium on the ground floor, so there would also be a second floor entry into the second level of the building would have the fitness center, which again is above the entry along Connecticut Avenue, the fencing studio, which is now on the north side of the building in this case, and the gymnasium, which would be floating overhead, creating like a nice little covered space on the outside piece of the building. And then the penthouse, again, has a rooftop cafe, outdoor lounge, and rooftop garden, which is, again, adjacent to the kitchen and media rooms. So the program spaces are similar up on the roof. It's mainly, again, where the gymnasium goes, like, once you move that, everything shifts around that. And then to summarize, again, so you can see it all again, how it all works together. Here it is with the exploded axon. So you can kind of begin to see with this an idea of how the form could develop from these space locations, which is going to be our next steps, which I'll get into here. So our next steps over the next month are to begin to, once we get feedback from the community and the task force on, whether you want to head, like I said, look at entertaining, we think A is better than B, we like A better than B, well, we'll begin to really focus on that approach. Or we like B better than A, we'll focus in that direction. And we'll begin to really then focus on, how does the floor plan work? How do we handle egress? How do we handle the stairs, and the elevators, the vertical circulation, and how do we meet code requirements for egress from different spaces? So, for example, like the gymnasium will most likely need 2 or 3 exits out of it. How do you get up to the rooftop? What parts of the roof are occupied? You know, then what does it look like? You know, is this a heavy timber structure? Is it steel? Is it concrete? Is it, you know, mostly glass? Is it, you know, a mixture of glass and some siding material, you know, that kind of stuff? That's what we're going to be developing in the next month. We're going to go from where we are today and really push it and develop it further. And as I said at the beginning, that's why this is just a part of the process. And you know, we could have came in here and said, oh yes, we're just going to make a big giant gable, rectangle with a gable roof on top of it. Well, that may not work, right? You know, we can easily come in here and come in with a preconceived notion. If you go through the design process, normally it is a squiggly line. Some days you go forward, some days you go back, some days you go sideways, but you know, for the most part, you know, if we all work together, you know, we keep moving forward and we get to that point where we can get that squiggly line really nailed down. Regarding the design, like I said, our next steps is really pushing forward in the concept design, which we'll then present at, next year to the community. And we're really looking forward to getting the HPO determination on whether this building is historic. So that restricts us on whether we can tear it down and start from scratch. And we'll also be continuing to work on pushing the zoning regulations forward. We should have a better understanding of that. And I think what we've decided to do is basically push forward on the design, even though we won't have the zoning regulations, you know, completely understood at this point. It's going to be, depending on which route we go, it can either be a 4-month process or it could be an 8 or 10-month process. So, but I think we have enough information, and I think the Office of Planning is willing to work with us, and that map you have over on the wall is going to help us really guide on what we can and cannot do with this building. But right now, I think we're pretty comfortable, and what we presented is possible, and we think it can be improved. Last summary I just have is, again, tonight's community meeting, you know, we're really looking to get community and task force feedback in the next couple of weeks on what you saw with which we can, when we go through questions and answers, we can easily go back and forth and go into more detail of it, answer any questions you have. And then later this week, we'll submit the draft concept submission, which is going to focus on the individual space needs, and we really want the community and task force review and feedback on that as well. You know, we talked to Chris about having the ANC work with the DPR to help collect feedback, and will we be providing an email address for people? How will we be handling that?
Right on the side of the ANC office.
Okay.
Provide an email address, the ANC office.
And we're going to be asking for feedback from everybody within 2 weeks, so we can keep moving forward. We have stuff that we can keep doing the next couple weeks while ANC collects information and feedback, and so we can keep moving forward, as I said. And then last, number 3 is developing the master plan, which will have a concept design, given an indication of materiality, and also a budget. We should have a preliminary budget associated with that. And then we'll come out and present that report and the design to you. And that is the end of our presentation tonight. So if you have any questions, we're going to open up the floor.
Sure, thank you. Let me ask the task force if you have any questions first. And, actually, I have a few questions. So why don't I just start with that? And then, so Scheme A, I don't really understand how the Scheme A works, because it looks like it's a bunch of spaces surrounding an atrium of some kind, because there's a blank space in the middle. So if you would explain that, what the idea is on that. can see there's a lot of blank spaces in there, they look like atriums. I was just wondering what you were thinking.
Those spaces right now, we left a lot of room for giving us an opportunity to really manipulate the spaces. So we left a lot of white space on purpose. There's going to be, you know, there's things that are missing in this, like stairs, elevators, you know, depending on, and also the one thing that this really isn't focusing on, what we're aware of is we have great issues to deal with. For example, the Commons is at one elevation, Connecticut Avenue is on a different elevation, and the building is on a third elevation. So we have to be mindful of how we engage if we go out, we have to be mindful of how we engage the spaces. So this interior could also possibly have ramps. The building may have variations in elevation.
I'm sorry, Dan, I've forgotten what the colors represent. Can you go those one more time? I think green was gymnasium, is that right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Green is gymnasium. Purple is auditorium. The dark gray are the mechanical and support spaces. And the blue are the meeting spaces. Like senior lounge, the activity lounge, active lounge, meeting spaces, arts and crafts, things like that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, yellow was...
And yellow is the common space.
The common spaces.
This doesn't show circulation spaces, both horizontal or correct.
Just a couple of people say something. So I like the auditorium, idea of an auditorium up front better than a gym, because I think the auditorium, that kind of activity will relate more to the street. And you can use the auditorium to make an interesting expression on the outside. And I think it's important that you have an entrance off Connecticut Avenue and the Commons both, which you sort of do in one scheme. I think just to have the building entrance off the Commons would sort of close the building off, separate the building out off from the community, which is sort of a problem we have now. It doesn't really engage that intersection of Connecticut and McKinley. And then finally, on the materials, I think it's a little premature to just narrow in on wood and glass based on a small sampling of people. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on whether the library is historic or not, because if the library is historic, you may want to be relating to the historic library materials. And I also think you ought to include brick as a material, because Chevy Chase is full of brick buildings. It's a very brick neighborhood. So.
First, excellent presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
Really. I actually enjoyed watching. I couldn't wait for the next slide to come on. Yes, so I have a few questions, but the first question I want to ask is about the proposed elements in the DC Comprehensive Plan, and how things that are in there that are proposed for this 3 or 4 block stretch on Connecticut Avenue might or might not impact what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of talk about, well, there's one question on the survey that we're doing about the library and possibly doing something like they have at West End Library with residences on top of the library if they redo it. And I was just wondering what, you know, this is basically one campus, but we're looking at things differently, and just what impact all that might have, decisions that are made down the line, or just what do you see as potential advantages or pitfalls of what's going on?
It's a really good question. As far as the comp plan goes, we're sort of going through the red line document and trying to determine what's going to become of it. It's something that we've read a lot into, but I'm not exactly sure how it impacts the design of this facility. I think that one thing that we're really thinking about is how this facility relates to the library project. Because I understand that the library is going through the process of looking for funding now, and so with that one having potential historic status and this one, no, I think we have been talking a lot about how this money is going to look compared to that, and that we don't want to set up a precedent that they can't follow, or that there be some sort of mismatch that we create. But as far as the comp plan goes, I'd have to go back and study more about that and get a better response for you.
Okay, yeah, I recommend doing that because if things go through the way that they're currently proposed to go through, the look and feel on Connecticut Avenue could greatly change, which, you know, given that you want to maintain a look and feel, the whole look and feel might change. We're not clear yet what's going to happen. It's a very confusing situation right now. So, and obviously, we have a task force. We love task forces. So we have a task force that's looking at all those things as well. Okay. I just want to make sure that it's on your radar, and as things come up and we find out things, or if you find out things, we need to keep each other apprised of that. Another simple question I have is on the survey that you're doing. Have you sent that out yet?
Yes.
Yes? Are
Yes.
you getting responses?
Yes, we received all the responses we need.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, everyone filled it out within 2 days. It was fantastic.
Okay. And I guess use the list that we sent you.
Yes, and that was very helpful as well.
Okay. If you go back to the slide that just had your initial schedule, I just have a quick question. I'm not questioning the schedule, I'm just questioning something I saw. Okay. So, between late December of 2019 and winter of 2020, that's when you're basically doing the bulk of your work.
Correct.
Okay. So does that mean that, and this is a question I get asked a lot, so that's why I'm asking to you, so that programs in this community center will probably still be ongoing in the fall of 2020? There would be no reason for those programs not to exist in this building in the fall of 2020, which I think the fall sessions end December 15th or something like that.
That's interesting. We went through this exercise with our procurement office earlier this week and tried to project out. And we also went through it with the voting folks, because I think this is one of the voting sites. And we believe, based on the current schedule, that it's okay to have. We thought it was okay to still have the November election here. We didn't think it would be closed yet. So we're pretty confident. It just takes a long time to get, just like it took a long time to get the architect awarded. It's the solicitation process for general contractors can sometimes take even a little bit longer. And we were looking at probably, you know, it would be, I think, probably winter of, I would say after the fall programming. I think that's when we would look to probably go into construction. That's what we've sort of been told from the procurement office.
One of the reasons I'm asking that is Commissioner Clayman, who's down at the end of this row, and myself, we have another task force, big, looking at finding space for programs that aren't Department of Rep programs. They'll take care of their own, but we have to find places for others. So you don't think that we need to do anything about that until the winter of 2020 that goes into 2021 classes?
That's my best guesstimate right now. I'll certainly follow up with the procurement office to try to get it. You know, they sort of give us milestone dates, which can change. They often never change. earlier. It's always a delayed change, but I'll verify. I can get back to you this week about an exact answer, because I know that's important for this facility to know.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we've got some zoning issues to go through with, you know, the whole permitting. So I'm pretty confident that none of the fall program would be impacted, but I'll verify.
Great, thanks. I'll save my other questions so that the rest of the group may ask.
Hello, Dan. That was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. It like exceeded expectations to see everything, and it's beautiful. The design is lovely. How you presented it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about. I'm trying to visualize. It's so hard for me looking at these, the way you've done it, and seeing it. So, if I were to walk in, either scheme A or B, when I walk in, is there a middle section? Like if I'm on a second floor, can I see things on the first floor? Is there a bird's eye view anywhere in this building, the new building?
The answer is yes. Where that exists, we're not sure, but definitely, you know, the lobby, I think, has that potential. You know, in Scheme A, we basically have that center. We basically have the center volume, right? And you know, Chris was asking about this white space. Well, that white space could be a cut through, where you could be up on the second floor and see all the way down. You know, there's a lot of different opportunities there.
Okay, the reason I ask is I feel like the reason this space, at least for me, doesn't work great is it feels like a prison in a way. Like you don't know what's happening in the other parts of the building. And,
Right.
and as a woman, I feel scared. Like I just am. I just don't know who's around the corner. You don't have like a way to see the whole building. And so what I would love is more open space, at least for eyes. Like I can see who's there. And this is another reason people on the street would like to see in. Because if they see people here, how many people, they're more likely to come in. And so I think that's very important. The other important thing is the entrance. You did mention having a central location. I think having it central is so key because it's what they call wayfaring. You know, you go to an airport, you're rushing to your gate, you want to know where to go, it's got to be easy. I go here, it's all direct, it directs you. Right now, the direction here is really odd, and so I always feel a little lost when I come in. So if there were a central place, it would be nice, because then materials can be put there, community notices could be there. You would feel like, I'm here, and I'm not lost yet, and then you can make your way. So I don't know what you're thinking. You didn't really talk too much about that, but I'd like to just express that need, I guess.
No, I mean, that was clear in the ANC report that people indicated that wayfinding was an issue, and I agree. I mean, you get into that atrium space with the stairwell, and as soon as you make 3 turns, you're completely lost, right? Even if you're just going up a story.
Go down to the basement.
Yeah, go down the basement, like,
It's scary.
It's like a maze.
yeah. I'm usually pretty good at finding true north, naturally. I don't know why, I must have a lot of iron in my nose or something, I don't know. But when I go down in the basement, I'm lost, you know? Kind of same thing with Metro. I get in the Metro and I get completely lost in the Metro. But anyway, it's that thing. So yes, the idea is with that central location of having a single point of entry is allowing people to interact with the DPR staff, to ask questions, to have signage to say, hey, the gymnasium is this way, or this is that way, and then possibly, be able to see up to the 3rd floor,
right.
or, even further, who knows at this point. But, like, I think there's really cool opportunities where, for example, and this is why we just did blocking and stacking tonight and didn't come in and show, well, here's your building. I think there's really cool opportunities, like, to take advantage of 2-story height spaces like the auditorium, where the auditorium could be removed from the exterior wall, where if you're on the outside of the building, you could have glass and then look in and see the box of the auditorium. Maybe the auditorium, then that space between the glass and the auditorium could be like some kind of ramp or, something. It can become something.
Yeah, like AU, I think, has that, their new space when you walk in. It's very welcoming, and you want to go in, because it is glass, and then you can see inside, and there's the auditorium. So I don't know from Scheme A to Scheme B what the real difference is in terms of feel. Okay, so I'm not sure, like having a gymnasium up or lower. I mean, first thing that comes to mind is noise, you know?
Right.
Just the bouncing of a basketball, you know, over and over again. You know, the running around, you know, with sneakers and so forth. Like, how does that impact? So sound insulation, I think, is very, very critical in this kind of space where we're doing different things. So, I mean, I imagine like spaces for, even though we didn't note it, but like meditation space and things like that as for seniors and like just quiet space. So putting a senior room with like these little youngsters, it's both good and it's also a negative, right?
Right.
It's nice to bring them together. It's really key.
Right.
But then, you know, can we do that? So I'm just wondering, what are the pros and cons of putting the gymnasium on the first floor, or the auditorium on the first floor and everything, second, upper floor? What's your thought process there?
So our thought process with that is a couple of things. It's just what you said, is noise. Basically, as you can see on scheme A, we basically have the gymnasium, which is going to be the loudest in terms of noise, maybe second to the preschool, separated from the blue spaces, all the meeting spaces, except for the stuff up on the first floor. And also we thought it provided a good opportunity here to basically, you know, as you're walking up Connecticut Avenue, you know, look in and see activity in the space by people playing basketball or doing gymnastics, or, you know, you can use the space for yoga, it can be used for Pilates, it can be used for multiple, Taekwondo, I didn't say that. You know, there's a lot of different uses that this space can have. So different times of the day, it should be active throughout the day. That's one of the reasons why we put it here. There's more, it's the fronting of Connecticut, showing activity in the building, and separation from of noise from the other activity spaces. On scheme B, we put it up top. Again, separated from the spaces that really need quiet spaces. So, for example, we had the preschool pretty much in the same spot in both schemes. But it can go, the preschool can swap back and forth depending on, you know, which is better for their security, and also in terms of separation between the senior lounge. The one question that we had when we went through this is, like, we have meeting spaces, we have activity lounge, we have community, we have the quiet lounge, and we have the senior lounge, right? So there's a lot of different spaces. Then the game room, there's also the game room. And so there's some spaces have similar program activities in it, or, you know, they're gonna have similar furniture arrangements, or they're gonna have, you know, similar functional. And that's where on Friday in that report we diagrammed that to say, like, this is what we think the meeting room could look like. This is what we think the activity lounge could look like. This is what the game room could look like. You know, these are the furnishings that could go in it, things like that. And that's where we're going to, you know, take what you just said, begin to flesh that out even more, and give us more information. Because the more information we collect, the more decisions we can, the better the decisions we can make. So, does that answer your question about
Yeah, it
locations?
does.
Okay.
And then I just have a few more answered questions. One is, there was a community member at a different meeting last year she lives right by here, by the parking lot. And her concern was that just the amount of activity, you know, cars coming in and so forth. And you said you're trying to respect both the commercial side and this side. What are your thoughts? I mean, I know you said something like the gymnasium, and then there's an overhang, and then the kids could be there. What's your thinking there? Can you expand a little bit more? How would it impact this side and also the parking? You didn't really mention it.
In both schemes, we're not heading.
That side, I get it all. That side.
Yeah.
I keep saying it wrong.
In both schemes, we're not impacting the parking lot. We're stopping short of the parking lot. So, for example, hypothetically, you know where the generator is outside.
Right.
The gymnasium could be above that. So you can hypothetically walk under the gymnasium, and it could either be stormwater retention garden, where the water, we collect the water from the parking lot, could possibly go there. That's where that could go. Because that's one of the things we have to address is the stormwater storage lockers and the generator are there. So we think we can do something with that space right there.
Let me just add one thing. These are two schemes that have different ideas about entry and placement of major functions. The height of the functions could change, so we can find the best aspects of both schemes and come up with the final solution.
So I have two things I want to mention that I would like to see. So one is on the rooftop. Oftentimes, I think seniors and like for a place to walk safely, so a labyrinth, I've seen it in other places, to be incorporated in a garden scheme there. And it's easy to do, and it's very meditative, and it gets you outdoors. So I personally would like to see that in my own community. And the other thing is, I think for kids, we often talked about they need, like if it's raining, they need a place to run, right? And so perhaps if in the gym or some, I don't know where, a climbing space for them or something, I'd like to consider, have that be put into consideration somehow, for them to have a place where they can really do something safely. And the third is on the rooftop, when you were talking about it, I got so excited and I thought, so often there's emails that come up about the mall, and I'm like, you could be outdoors and you can see a movie and so forth. I don't know, maybe there's a way to use it even more to bring in the community. And that's it. I have over to the I know.
I'm gonna wait, because I wanna get something less.
Thanks. So I do want to start by saying that I'm really very impressed with the presentation that you done tonight. It is very heartening to see the amount of work that has been presented here tonight, and especially in how you laid out the opportunities and challenges you're going to be facing on this project, and how that has informed the scheme that you've come up with. I might even say that probably a little bit disappointed that there are not more people from the community here tonight to be able to see this, and hopefully there is going to be an opportunity for these images to be put out into the public, maybe to get comments on. Having said that, it always is better to hear an architect's words while the images are being presented. Hopefully that won't be too much of a step down. But I do want to make a couple of comments specific, maybe more so to Scheme B and to Scheme A. Before I say that, I will say this. I think last meeting and even before that, there was a community member that mentioned specifically about the burn on Connecticut Avenue. And it was interesting when you mentioned that. I've been involved with the other ANC members of the task force here on the preliminary work the community has been doing for over 2 years now, and I never thought about burn. And then when he said it, I was like, when we talked about wanting to engage with Connecticut Avenue, it just made sense. And I think in regards to what you've done in Scheme B, I very much like how you've actually put this two-story lobby volume and made it align with Connecticut Avenue. It's interesting to look at the images and do your images. It kind of makes that part, that program, the space, a special place. I could see that area becoming some sort of a special gem of space. So there's really an opportunity to make that part of the building something different, though it's part of the building programmatically. So I very much like that. I think having that connection with Connecticut Avenue, as well as having the connection with the Plaza area, again makes sense. People are going to be coming in from those two places, even though in regard to security, we don't want to have a situation where you have too much entries, and I think you have to do a good job to address that. I think it's helpful too in regards to some of the being able to attract attention to bring people in. You know, and I think as Connie had mentioned too, that area is one where we want to energize people from the street. So not just people that know what kind of a program is happening in the building, but people are walking past and look in. And I know we don't want to get too much into materiality quite yet, Chris, but I can see that here being, some sort of a glass box, so it is transparent, but also provides some sort of separation as well. One of the things I think in regards to security and also in regards to control is being able to see the street and let the street see you. And it's going to make it very important as to where you locate, I think, the administrative office. The folks I remember hearing when we did conduct some surveys here mentioned that it was really hard for them to know what was happening if anything would happen on the street. It wouldn't actually reach them until much later in regards to an event, something happening, or even just people coming around to come into the building. So I could almost see an opportunity there for them to be placed in a way that even if there's some sort of a glass box there, along kind of they can still see through it. There's that visual transparency, even though it is an element in itself. So that was just a thought I had. I remember Mr. Bell mentioning the last meeting as well, that along the north side of the building, there's going to be an opportunity to put a little more glass there. There's not going to be direct sunlight coming in, and that's really a great opportunity as well. So it makes, programmatically, the kind of spaces you put along that part of the building also could be important. So I have a question about the scheme to show the auditorium on that north elevation. So if you could talk to me about how you see potential for capturing that natural daylight, but also having the auditorium on that north side.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, right now we have the auditorium, the scheme being located on the north side, like you just said. One thing we were thinking of is if you did that, maybe it's separated from the glass, rather than that space either on the ramp, it becomes something, right? And because as you mentioned, we definitely want to take advantage of having the north light as much as possible. There's a couple of things that come to my mind in terms of materiality, and as David showed last time in the last presentation, showed an image of two different buildings and a little walkway separated into two buildings. And in this case, let's say hypothetically, the worst case scenario, DCPL, the building is considered historic, right? And they're limited on what we can and cannot do with it. I think it opens opportunities for using glass as you're walking through there, where you can have then the reflection, capture the reflection of the library on the building and stuff like that, and use things like that rather than just having a brick wall and have it be really disconnected from the library. I think there's ways we can use reflection materials and things that really engage the exterior spaces and bring in light and make the building active in those spaces. Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Could you use the mic because the camera won't be able to go.
Oh, sorry.
yeah, again, these are ideas to sort of discern what is important. Placement of individual spaces can shift around. So it might make sense the scheme be to shift the auditorium further south and move other spaces north to capture that night. So that would be the next step. I think the major moves we're trying to determine are really where's the entrance, where are the major spaces, and then to open them around. So, that's why we only have two schemes, is because we want to get the clear distinction of those major moves settled, and then get more involved in the specific relationships.
I would close by saying I think there is value in both schemes, in exploring both schemes. I don't know if we're supposed to give a preference tonight, probably leaning towards Scheme B or Scheme A. re-energize the site to see where you guys come up with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question? I might have a question. I think we could move to audience questions. Yeah, it's been a while. So.
Okay.
I think that's all right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Anybody? No, that's not an audience.
I got a bunch of questions.
I'll tell you my name, right? I'm supposed to. Christina Benoit. I live on 28th Street. I lived in DC for 20 years. Lived in the neighborhood for about 10. I appreciate the descriptions that you gave of the programming. I would have appreciated in your presentation to hear a little bit more about what you were recommending as the attributes and the drawbacks from both schemes. I think there was some of that we heard from some questions that arose, but if you have anything else that you'd like to add in that respect, that would be helpful. And also I would I've sort of subtly heard you talking about overlapping programming and how you design spaces. And I would just encourage you to continue to look at the possibility of overlapping that programming instead of continuing to make small individual program spaces, like is very typical in the current scheme, because that creates the kind of rabbit warren, dangerous feeling building that we currently have. And I think there is a strong opportunity for, particularly in the lounge spaces, for looking at times of day and opportunities for overlap. So, that's it. But if you could address like what you think are the benefits of Scheme A and Scheme B, it would be useful to hear that.
That's a tough question.
That's why you're architects, though. Right?
Yeah.
You have a preference. I know you do. I know you do.
Well, I do think there are pros and cons on each one. If somebody said, we have to have this scheme, or somebody said we have to have the other scheme, we can make that work.
You're not that, but you're not that yet. I just need it to be helpful.
In reacting to what you have now, I agree that it's a chopped up space. It doesn't really address the street, but it does have a clear T-shaped organization inside, and the larger spaces are on one side, and the smaller spaces are on another quarter. It's a pretty logical layout, and then the entrance is off that shared landscape space between the two buildings. So Scheme A has that same kind of approach in terms of how you arrive. That's nice because it actually addresses Connecticut Avenue and the parking lots where people. But it doesn't really address commercial street as it should be addressed, because I think ideally there should be more people walking to this facility than driving to this facility. Scheme B, I think, has an opportunity to have more visibility from the street and from the internal parts of the site. So it could be more lively, more open, and have a better feel. Scheme A actually has the opportunity probably for more internal open space like nature or something. So that's desirable. So I would sort of lean towards Scheme A. I do agree with some of the other comments about the gym probably needs to be buried or further away from the front wall. And the auditorium probably should be closer to Connecticut, has a better dialogue to the Avalon Theater that might actually create some synergies there. But it maybe doesn't need to be right on the street, it could be just close to the lobby. And the lobby, if it's facing the Connecticut Avenue and the garden, and it's a taller space, it could be glassy, it could be very inviting, and it could actually have some multiple connections. It could be 3 stories instead of 2 stories, for instance. And every floor could actually look out through it, and could introduce some ornamental trees or something in the space if you wanted to, or try to make it a blur distinction between the inside and outside. So if I were to lean towards one scheme or the other, I would lean towards Scheme B. I just think there's sort of more opportunities to actually engage it better with
Thank you. Ray Finkelman, I'm the fencing master here at the center. And Just some general comments. I like Scheme B also. I like the entry off of Connecticut Avenue. I think that's a good idea. I'm a little concerned from the fencing point of view that the blue area for fencing looks smaller in Scheme B than Scheme A. I don't know if that's true or not. We'd like to increase our space like that we have.
The intent is that the spaces are the same size in both of the schemes. The configuration may be slightly different.
That's fine. I sent you an email. I assume you received my email with a lot of specific requirements that we have for our room. And with the addition of the gymnasium and the other meeting spaces, since ballet has had a dedicated space for a long time, I'm wondering whether the spaces that share the fencing area now in the multi-purpose room, they will have other locations to meet. I'm wondering whether we can accommodate some of the requirements I have by dedicating the fencing room to fencing specifically. And then we can have the specific floor requirements that I mentioned in my email, and the electronics, storage area, things like that. So I think the activities that use the room now are I think there's practice tennis or baseball or something, they could use the gymnasium area for those activities. So I don't know whether that's a possibility or not. It might ease the requirements that we have for our room. With the fencing room being on another level, I'm also concerned about the ceiling height. As we mentioned in one of our requirements, we need like a 15-foot ceiling so that we don't hit the ceiling when we raise our swords up. So we need tall enough area for that. Yeah, let's see.
While you look that up, all these requirements that you're talking about, all this will be spelled out in the report that's going to be submitted on Friday. We've gone through and painstakingly combined all the comments that ANC's received, we received, whether through the questionnaire process or through email, and identify these issues. So
that's reassuring. And, I also brought with me a thumb drive with some photos of other fencing rooms around the country that I don't know how familiar you are with that setup, so I can give you copies of that.
That'd be great. I think she had a question.
My name is Evelyn Penhoet, and I was wondering, so I don't know if you guys can answer this, but which seems more prominent right now, Scheme A or Scheme B? I mean, like, which seems like more of a possibility? Okay, never mind.
No, I like it. Ask the question to the board, you know.
Okay. Okay. And then also, for me, it's kind of hard to like see, like, I don't know if you guys have gotten this far in the design process, but like, what are the materials they added for each of them? Because for me, it kind of looks like box.
Those are really good questions. It's stuff we struggle with all the time. Do you have a favorite? Something you would like to see here? Do you do? I'm sorry. What was it?
She's a fencer. She's at a different club.
Oh, okay.
She's friends at fencer.
Oh, great.
It's important. There's not many opportunities for fencing clubs in the area, so it's a huge asset that there's a fencing club that just.
Absolutely. Well, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite place that you go to do recreation, like a YMCA or a rec center or somewhere? Do you have a favorite place, or your school? Is there anything you like about your school?
Well, at my school we have this climbing wall that's 65 feet tall.
65 feet.
And it's super fun. But that's one of my favorite things. We also have
wow.
fields, which is well, because then you can have multiple games going on at once. So, yeah.
Your climbing wall, do you connect yourself to a remote?
Yeah, there are anchors in the ceiling.
So it's got a safety harness?
It's 3D.
It's a freestanding.
It's the, yes.
Oh, that's really
It's
interesting.
in the same, same vertical space.
Yeah, it's a circular area, and then we have like, and so like basically there's this like circulation area, and then on the top floor there's some offices, and like also a field, and then below that we have a court here and a court over here, and then on every floor there's like this loop area, and in the middle of that loop is a platform.
Wow. I want to come visit your school. what was, I'm sorry, the name of your school?
National Cathedral School, NCS.
Oh, NCS,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much.
I got to comment. I like how you were thinking. I could see you thinking in mind placing where everything is. So it was interesting what you think. What's that?
Said both their parents are architects.
There you go. There you go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Loretta Huron, and I've lived in my current house since 1968, and I've been here even longer. Won't go into the exact amount of time. Okay, so I was very interested to hear this presentation. I'm a senior who attends exercise classes here, as well as Zumba and yoga. So those particular classes are extremely important to me. And I was concerned about the overlapping of activities. For instance, we have our exercise classes in this room, in this auditorium, and it's filled. I mean, maybe 35 to 40 people are in the room at any given time for these exercise classes. Then there are 10, from 10 to 11 and 11 to 12. And then there's a stretch class that meets here afterwards. So I'm wondering, with the auditorium that you are mentioning as one of the biggest spaces, are those seats, 125 seats, going to be permanent, or would they be movable? I mean,
The gym.
the exercise spaces will be in the gym? Well, supposing during the summertime when the children are here, there's a lot of activities that goes on with those children. So if they want to use the gymnasium and we have to come to the auditorium, are those seats going to be permanently? That's just my big question.
That's a scheduling issue.
Yeah.
And I think they'll have to schedule it so kids can play one time kids want to play. Theoretically, the exercise classes can happen.
Right. But still, will those seats be permanently
Yes,
fixed to the floor?
Yes.
we're hoping it's a real auditorium.
Oh.
We're looking for a real auditorium.
Okay, so where's the ANC meeting going to take place? Oh, okay.
Now, to expand upon the auditorium and seating, there are opportunities there where you can have pull-out, basically risers, instead of having fixed seating, which would allow the auditorium to be a multi-purpose space as well. There's pros and cons to that, obviously, but it's something that it could be entertained as well, instead of it just, having it be fixed. But as of right now, it's we got some. Yeah, but then also you can put in. There's two different kinds as far as I understand. There's one where basically the risers come out, where you then just put chairs on it, so you get the stadium seating effect. They have that at the Whitney in New York with their theater space, their spaces where it makes it up. They can do performances there. They can do little shows in there. I think you can even have a wedding there, and it's a theater space as well, where it has a projector room and things like that. So it allows, like, the way I kind of see this, the auditorium, one of the opportunities of the auditorium is where it could be used, if it was multi-purpose, it could be used to house to hold events. You can have special events there, whether it's art or, parties or whatever the activity would be. But I think it allows more options if it's not fixed.
Well, as it is now, we don't have plays here like we used to in the olden days. Chevy Chase Players, I don't know if any of you remember that at all. That's why we have the platform over there. And so I'm just wondering how many different activities are going to be here besides the ANC meetings.
In the auditorium.
And I have another question too.
I'll give it right back to you, but I did talk with actually the director of DPR, Director Hunter, on Saturday, and he was very enthusiastic about the auditorium, and he's got lots of ideas. I mean, music performances, the Avalon Theaters are indicated a very strong interest in using this as an adjunct to the theater. Politics and Prose, having lectures here. We would have, it would be an opportunity to have a lot of different kinds of events that really don't have a place right now. Director Hunter also emphasized that if we have an auditorium here, it will be only the second one in any DPR facility in the city. And it's really needed, I think, for a wide range of projects and things. He wants to include a lot of arts here. Visual arts, music arts, all of those kinds of things as well. And this could really provide a place for all of that.
I hope that happens.
Yes.
I don't see why it couldn't happen right now. But, okay, so the fitness room with equipment, do you know what kind of equipment and how large a room is that going to be? And do you use that for any other activities besides just exercising, or what?
Yes, we have an idea of the space size. I can't remember off the top of my head. It will be in the report on Friday. It's going to be published on Friday, where we don't have a listing of the equipment, and it's going to be something that DPR will provide us. Basically, I think it's about a 2,500 square foot space, or I can't remember the size of it, but it could have. It's something like that. But
And
basically,
what did you say?
I don't think it's quite that big. Typically, we design those spaces to be flexible so that depending on what the needs are and the trends, that the equipment can be taken up and replaced and things like that. Some of the ones we've done for DPR have a mix of open space and equipment, so that we can actually do other kinds of activities there.
I will say, we are going to have our grand opening of the new Edgewood Recreation Center on Saturday at 11:30, and that one is going to have our biggest fitness center to date. It's about 2,600 square feet, and it looks like a Gold's Gym or any place like that you go. It's full of equipment. But one thing we have heard is folks saying, we probably need to pick out a couple pieces to make some room for stretching or, jump ropes, things like that. So we try to find a balance between the equipment and open space to actually stretch it and do other things, maybe with a trainer or something like that. So we look at that moving forward.
And what recreation center?
It's called the Edgewood Recreation Center. It's over by the, off of Rhode Island in Northeast DC, Ward 5. Close to Trinity, right. So it's Saturday, if you want to check it out, Saturday 11:30, and there'll be a big crowd there, and the mayor will be there to open it. But it's our newest recreation center, and a lot of the stuff we've talked about tonight, it's going to have some similar spaces to that.
Thank you.
We're also happy to share photos to the community and the ANC of that, what that looks like as well.
Thanks.
and to follow up on your comment about the fitness center equipment, if there's equipment that you would like, put that in the feedback. Maybe that'd be helpful.
I had several topics. First of all, thanks again. This was really a fantastic presentation. I'm very excited about what you're doing here. It really looks great. A couple of things about zoning and HPO. Is there anything the ANC can do to assist in that process? We certainly have appeared before the HPO previously and both advocated historic designation and sometimes did not support historic designation. Would it be advantageous for us to have a resolution on any of those issues, or on the zoning issues for that matter as well. Especially if we were going for a special exception or something like that, we would certainly be involved in that process as a matter of right, or an automatic party of an ECA proceeding. So
so actually for Edgewood, with regard to the zoning, we did get an ANC letter of support for, I think that was a parking variance, though, related to zoning, but we can certainly find out if it could be helpful, but that's great to know you'd be willing to do that.
Well, and your HPO may be on a little bit of a faster track too, I don't know, but let us know if there's anything we can do as the ANC to support this process, because we do want to make sure it moves as smoothly as possible. The other thing is the library involved in the HPO designation? Certainly, I would think they would want to be aware of it and take a position one way or the other, presumably. Anyway, just that's on those two issues. I also, for the same reasons Chris and Patrick mentioned and others have mentioned as well, I thought Scheme B was really very, very interesting. And I like very much the entrance directly on Connecticut Avenue, because the building right now, as you said, just does not have any relationship to Connecticut Avenue. And it's just a much more interesting scheme, I think, on B, especially the angles and all that. I found that more interesting. Then I have one final parochial question. We have an ANC office here now. Is there going to be a space for an ANC office in the new community center?
It's in the program.
I knew it was in the program, but I didn't know whether it was.
That's the most important part of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's in the center. Okay.
Okay, sure. Okay, a couple questions. More questions?
I was just saying that my mom said that about how the little tiny pieces. I was thinking also that maybe you could include partial barriers, so it wouldn't be completely closed off, but there would still be separation.
Say that again? Just
So
give me the mic.
yeah,
You can get the mic. Okay. You can stand there.
Okay, so I was saying for areas that have similar layout, you could have partial barriers, so half a wall, well not half a wall, you could have a partial barrier instead of a full barrier, so it'd still be open to other places, but you could also have your own space.
Have you made a decision that you're going to knock down all 4 walls? Not yet. Okay. And then, is there a website for this project?
Yes, there is. Actually, we may have it on the last page, but the easiest thing to do is go to Google, and so that's a project website. It's a mile long, but if you just go to Google and type in DGS Chevy Chase Community Center, it should be the first thing that pops up.
Are you going to send us this presentation?
Yes, sir. I'll send this to you, and we'll also post it on the project website too.
Got it. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, the other presentations are already there. Great.
Because when we post the video, it'll make more sense to people if they could also look at the presentation.
Sure.
So as soon as you can do that, because we'll have the video up tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Let's see. When you said winter 2020, did you mean December 2020, or did you mean January, February 2020?
January,
For construction?
No, for a master plan presentation.
Oh, that's this coming.
Within the next 3
coming,
months.
right? In about
great.
2 months.
Got it. Okay. Okay. That's good. That's wonderful. Glad I asked. And then, so you're posting a concept design, which is a more detailed plan than what we saw tonight. You're posting that this Friday.
It's going to DPR.
Or it's going to DPR. But is that being public this Friday?
I think they need to review it first before
Yeah, so we would like to take a look at it, and this sort, we want to make sure it sort of, and I don't have any illusions. It's not. Bell does great work, But we would like to just have a chance to review it, let our director take a look at it. But I have no issues about making that public, or certain parts of that public, because I'm sure the community would be anxious to see what that looks like.
You had mentioned you wanted feedback on it.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my question then is, how would that, how are you envisioning that?
Oh, are you talking about I thought were we looking for feedback on this presentation?
And Fridays.
Oh, for both?
Fridays, yes.
Okay.
That's something we were talking with DPR and Chris earlier, of how we can collect. We need someone to act as a clearinghouse to collect the responses. I think Chris volunteered to have the ANC do that.
So,
and then be passed on to DPR.
So what I think we can do is, we can disseminate that to our stakeholder. We have a stakeholder group from folks that have signed in and shown interest, and we can also send that to the ANC, and if you guys want to distribute it to whomever. And we had talked to Chris earlier that comments can come to the ANC email inbox and at least be forwarded to me, and we'll get that back to Bell with all those comments collected. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think we could try it. If we get hundreds and hundreds of comments, it may overwhelm our little office.
I'm guessing that I'm going to get hundreds of comments.
Well, you never know. I think as this project goes along, people are going to get more and more interested when they really see a building. All of a sudden, they'll wake up and say, I like it.
That tends to happen.
Well, I think, and then to that point, I think the more feedback we can get now, the better.
Sure.
Later. Right. So to that point, if it's being submitted to DPR this Friday, I would expect that it's not going to be made public next week. That's first week of Christmas. I don't anticipate, or at least if it is, I don't think people would be paying attention to it. So can we just kind of talk through what the timeline of that is? Because I know you mentioned you don't want to, you want to do about 2 weeks. So what would that, how would that work?
Maybe what we'll do is go back and have a recap of this conversation and talk about maybe reframing the timeline for feedback. Because the 2 weeks might be a little bit tough just because of the 2 weeks from today is actually, I think, January the 1st. So maybe we can tack on a couple extra days. We can talk about that, I think, internally. Whatever makes sense so we get the majority, get as much feedback as we can get. I think makes the most sense.
Well, and I think there's really a decision, right? I think we could say we don't want feedback on the concept design, we want feedback on the master plan. But I think if we want feedback on the concept design, we should make sure that there's 2 weeks there, not the next 2 weeks, probably. That's maybe 2 weeks in January would make a lot more sense. Just because I don't expect you to get much meaningful feedback between now and the new year.
Right. So we'll go back over that.
Just a very quick thing, when you do the spark spec or whatever, will you have you asked about glass to date? Will it have colors like this color, this general, this color?
Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to touch on that. Thank you.
So I think we ought to need to look at this also as, think of when our next meeting would be. Because I guess you have a deliverable less than a week after this meeting. And we shouldn't let too much time go on after this deliverable before we have the next meeting.
Just one quick thing about lack of participation maybe tonight. We had a comprehensive plan task force meeting on Monday night that 70 people came to. And given that we're getting closer to the holidays, I think people only have so much time, and we thought that was pretty much the last time that the group would be able to get together before comments were due. So a lot of those same people would be here tonight. So don't take the sparse crowd for disinterest. It's just we're putting a lot of demands on our community at this time to respond to things.
Understood.
Well, I also think that the community wasn't
Expecting a design, a lot of work to be done. And actually, I'm quite surprised and pleased at how much work you guys have done, because I really wasn't expecting to see a lot of progress, and there has been. But I'm pretty confident this building gets fleshed out, there's going to be a lot more interest. So I wouldn't take sparse audiences as what we're going to have all the way through.
Right.
Just the last point, I think the people that aren't here really missed out. I think there's a lot to see, and I think it's we really appreciate it. So I think my point about feedback is I just want to make sure that we're really asking people for it, we give them a real opportunity to do that, because there's a lot to respond to here, and that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So I'll make sure, I think it's important when we send out an email, whatever it is for comments, we're very clear about what we're looking to get back, because it's a lot of information. So I think we make sure things are labeled well, and we clearly articulate what we're looking to get back. So we'll some deadlines. So thanks for that.
So I had a couple of other comments based on what I've heard today. So one, I really like some of the things you showed about having activities that have a lot of action facing the street, like the fitness center and the fencing and the dancing. I hadn't really thought about that. But that's really is going to make this place seem more inviting if you can start looking in and seeing activities. So I think that's a great idea. And the other thing is we have the basement here is awful. So I'm hoping we don't have a dark basement in the new building, because it's I think all the spaces need to be day-lit. And if you have the spaces below grade, you need to have a nice, generous areaway with light coming in, things like that.
We might make the dark room dark.
Make the dark room, put a dark room down there. That's it.
Yeah.
And who's the architect of this building? That's one you know, or is it?
I don't remember, but that's somebody that you remember.
Nobody's special. Okay.
That's
So, do we have any other questions? We have about 10 minutes. We really have to leave at 9 o'clock. Stephanie?
Should I take that, or should I just pass on it? Okay. Well, I don't know if it's, I'm not actually a resident of 3G, but I work at the ANC, so I hopefully use the building. And since there are not many people here, I'll speak up for all the self-conscious members of the community. Because I don't know, I think the only people that like fitness centers with glass walls are like super athletes. I think for a community center, you don't want everybody walking. Like I always walk by those gyms and think, who would want to work out there?
Right.
Like I think I think the only people that should see the people working out are the other people working out, like the, sort of and likewise for a yoga room, like I love yoga, I've done yoga for decades, but I don't really like yoga studios where the passersby are looking in on you when you're doing yoga either, or if you're meditating or lying down or whatever, you don't want to, so you want open spaces to feel comfortable and safe, but there's also, I think, people using the room don't always want to have spectators.
Right. Exposed.
If it was on the second floor, it would be something.
Yeah.
You could look in, right. See the activity.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, honestly, I kind of love them. I mean, hopefully it's more use, and that's not going to be possible anymore. But it was kind of fun when I'm in the office to come into the gym and be the only person in the whole gym. But yeah, without. The other, I'm sorry. Kind of, what are you doing in here? The other thing I was wondering is, unless I missed it, did you talk at all about what would be in the basement? Or is there going to be room for programs in the basement? Or did I?
Yeah, I mean,
Because that was the first floor, right? The bottom floor wasn't that the ground entry level?
So some of the labeling is not consistent. So the ground floor is the basement.
That's the basement, but we said that there's an extra story. That's not the roof. The roof isn't a roof.
no, there's the roof and spaces up there. There's the kitchen.
So the penthouse is
Right, 3 floors instead of the basement, 2 floors.
I thought it was 3 floors plus the basement, the 3 floors, and the penthouse.
The way this building is considered in the zoning right now, it's a 2-story building with a cellar, so the cellar doesn't count as a story. The basement right now does not count as a story.
Okay.
The design, whether it's A or B, the basement will be counted as a story, most likely. And so if we're limited to only 3 stories, we can't go up because we're claiming the basement as a story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But then we're allowed to have a penthouse. And the penthouse can be occupied at have occupied space on it. So we're going to take advantage of that as much as we can. No, it'll be on the roof. Yeah, so the idea is that if you're, like, the way I kind of picture it is if, like, the cafe, it depends on what goes in the cafe, whether it's actually a cafe or just basically a bunch of benches or seats or something like that up there. I am kind of picturing that could have like a glass wall, either it's glass garage doors or something that can open up and then you can walk out and you'll be on the roof and access the outdoor lounge and spaces like that. So in that cafe could possibly have, a drink bar, however you guys want to do. I don't know what DPR is able to do.
We can do alcohol now. All right.
So you're saying we can have one heck of a celebration?
We could.
Good.
Does for your license.
Anything else?
I have a question before we all break up here real quick. Just show of hands, which do people prefer right off the bat? Raise your hand if you prefer scheme A. Raise your hand if you prefer scheme B.
And what about the existing? There are good things about it.
It's a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
I think they're, like you said, they're the.
When do we want to meet next? Want to set a date or we want
If it's okay, I think we want to sort of rehuddle.
to?
Yeah, that's okay. And I'll reach back out to you maybe after the first, pretty quickly. And we can come up together with a new date. Or a date. That's okay. Sounds good.
Like Wednesday.
Wednesdays are good? Okay, we can do Wednesdays.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you so much.